Hi BookTube, this is Kelly. Thank you so much for watching Books I'm Not Reading. I admit I'm a little bit grumpy today, and I actually was thinking of not making a video, and then I did some reading online, and I just decided, nope, I have to talk about this. So, I am going to do a review of My Father's Tears and Other Stories by John Updike, because I finished it this last week, and I want to talk to you about it. And I want to talk about this stuff, this praise, fountain of praise for John Updike. But before I do that, just briefly, just to let you know what I'm going to be spending my weekend reading. My main goal is to spend a lot of time in another Victober book, The Warden by Anthony Trollope. I've heard so many great things about this Barchester series by Trollope, and so yeah, it's skinny. Like, I should be able to make a serious dent in it this weekend, I feel like. It's going to be super cold here on Sunday. The high, I believe, is 9 degrees, and the low is -11 in Fahrenheit. So, yes, it will be very cold. The other thing I've been reading is some poetry, The Light Around the Body by Robert Bly. It's part of my quest to try to read, I think, 4 poetry books this year. And also for Victober, Robert Bly's obviously not for Victober, but I've been just kind of picking my way through randomly Sonnets from the Portuguese and Other Love Poems by Elizabeth Barrett Browning. And I would really like to make a Victober video about this as well. That's what I'll be doing this weekend while it's freezing cold outside, and I shouldn't go anywhere anyway because people in my community don't believe in masks. So, another reason why I'm really a little bit grumpy. Okay. So, my history with John Updike is long, actually. I first read John Updike for my Pulitzer project. If you're new to my channel, I have read all of the books that have won the Pulitzer Prize for fiction. I spent a little over 2 years doing that, and that was about, oh my goodness, 10 years ago? And John Updike is one of the very few people who have won the Pulitzer Prize twice. 2 of them were for the last 2 books in his tetralogy. It's called the Rabbit novels. It's about Harry Rabbit Angstrom. Rabbit Run is the first one, Rabbit Redux, then Rabbit is Rich, and Rabbit at Rest. Those last 2 books won the Pulitzer Prize. And I really felt like I couldn't start halfway through. I really felt like I needed to read all 4 books. And I'm just going to say right now that if there's somebody out there who loves John Updike and somebody who would really treasure this book. It's in excellent condition. It's just been read once. So let me know in the comments section, and I will hopefully mail it to you. Again, I probably won't be until 2021 because, you know, I can't go to the post office because no one in my community wants to wear masks. So, but I would gladly give it away to someone who's interested. So let me know in the comment section, but you may not want to listen to the rest of my review. I hated the Rabbit books. I hated them. I hated Rabbit. I mean, and it, you should know, like, his nickname isn't Rabbit just because he was a high school basketball star. Okay? So, it was excruciating. So So picking this book up, I was like, oh boy, here we go. There is one story in this entire book that I really thought was great. A great short story. The other thing I want to say too is that I have read an unusual number of short story collections, and sometimes complete short story, like all of their short stories, for the Pulitzer Project. And so I object to this idea that, oh, like you're not supposed to read them in order or you read them over time. One of them was published in 1979 and clearly a lot happened. I mean, John Updike wrote, my goodness, more than 20 novels, more than a dozen short story collections, poetry, art, literary criticism, and this was a shocker, children's books. Can't imagine what those would be like. Here's my big beef with John Updike, is that every short story, almost universal, that I read in this book, okay? So I will say it's just this one. But every short story, the protagonist is a male, and they all feel like the same guy. Like, it's like this weird phenomenon of someone like living lives over and over and over again. Like, he's always in between a marriage or ending his first marriage or starting or ending his second marriage. There were so many short stories that the father was a school teacher. I'm like, could we not come up with something different? One of the things in my little internet research that really set me off was that I guess Updike apparently at one point describes his subject as the American small-town Protestant middle class. These people do not feel middle class to me at all. And I don't think John Updike was either, okay? But, I mean, if you want a description of his male protagonist, there we go. Like, it's like John Updike. And I almost felt like I was transported back to Rabbit. Like, that these stories were like another way of trying to somehow write out, and obviously, again, some of them are published before all of the Rabbit books were out, but it drove me crazy, the repetition in this collection. And again, I get it. I understand. They were written over a course of time. Part of me felt like somebody pulled them out of a drawer and said, let's publish these. Like, oh, it's sort of like when we used to listen to CDs, I feel like there's an order that the songs are intentionally put in a certain order. And I feel like in a short story collection, the stories should be put in an intentional order, right? So, I mean, just the repetition. And I'll give you an example. A story about a guy, and he's married and flirting around with this other woman on this trip to India. And at one point, they're on the bus going from temple to temple, and this woman gets up and speaks about Hinduism. And let's see, she says, there are no Hindu disbelievers. Even our particle physicists and computer programmers are good Hindus. Okay, fine. Like, it's a story set in India. It makes sense that would be something that would be on a tour guide. The very next short story, okay, like the next story in the book, this guy who looks an awful lot like this, this guy goes to get this treatment, and my dad has actually had this treatment before. It's called the blue light, and that's the name of the short story, and it's to help get rid of like precancerous cells, and I think at the time that Updike wrote this, like, this treatment was relatively new. But anyway, so the doctor is like, oh, you're going to set this up with Sheila. And so when we finally meet Sheila, she's wearing a sari. So first of all, he starts talking to her while he's getting this blue light treatment because it's so painful. He's trying to distract himself. And so he's talking to her, and he asks her about Hinduism, which I kind of thought was offensive because there are tons. I mean, just because somebody's wearing a sari doesn't mean they're Hindu. India, of all countries, is so diverse in terms of religions. beliefs that I think, again, I was slightly offended that he just, oh, you're wearing a sari, so you must be Hindu. Anyway, and so he's kind of asking, what's the God that is like the closest concept to the Christian concept of God? And anyway, so she's responding to him, and then she says, there are no disbelieving Hindus. Like, really, the next story, the same exact sentence. It's just like, come on. Like, that character in the sari could have been it could have been anyone. Like, we could have any other conversation. Like, why does she have to say the same thing that a character in the story right before it says? Some of these stories just, they just don't stand the test of time. Like, they feel really dated. Okay, so now I will talk to you about the one story that I thought was really good. And it is called, make sure I get it right. I think I know what it is, but it is called The Varieties of Religious Experience. And I bet you could probably find it online. Check this book out from the library, read that story. You don't need to read the rest. I've done it for you. The Varieties of Religious Experience is about 9/11. And it starts off with somebody who looks an awful lot like this, watching 9/11 happen from Brooklyn. But then it switches voice to one of the people who are going to take over the planes on 9/11. So it's pre 9/11, like maybe by like a day or so. And we're in the mind of one of the terrorists. And then it switches again to a woman who's on Flight United 93. And depending on what age you were when 9/11 happened, and obviously what country you live in, like, I never really thought anything would surpass 9/11 in my lifetime as far as historical events. I think the pandemic has. But I've never read any fiction that directly talked about 9/11, like was very clear about it. Lots of stories with metaphors, or even films. I've read lots of things where it feels very post 9/11, but that story addressed it very just right there. And it was so great to hear John Updike in another voice, a voice not like Rabbit. And if the whole book had been short stories where John Updike actually like gets outside himself, and again, I get it, like it was kind of a theme, maybe it was a trend or something. John Updike's he was born within a year of Philip Roth. And Philip Roth is notorious for including himself in his novels, or having like kind of this like alter ego, Zuckerman, in Roth's books. So I get like that it was kind of a trend. I do recommend his perspective on 9/11, his telling of that, because I think it was really bold and brave, and yeah. So I thought that was great. I wanted more of that. If you've read any Updike, I would love to hear what your thoughts on Updike are. I look forward to your comments. Tell me what you're reading this weekend as well, if you'd like. Remember to be kind to yourself, be kind to others, and take care. Thanks, BookTube.